Has anyone here not visited our website yet? We work really tirelessly to put incredible programs throughout the year. So this is where you go. On the right side of the website, you see a lot of good programs. You get to know who's talking about what on what date. They're going to be all in here in 2013. That's right. That's actually Bill's wife. Yep, coming home. After the meeting, we're going to this place, Iguana Cafe, 517 Halsted. We would like to give them a call, give them a heads up how many people they should expect. So if you could please raise your hand. Let's count how many is coming with us tonight. 2, 4, all right, there you go. Okay, so about 20 people, that's good. Thank you. And here's a little map for you. If you're driving, when you get out of the parking lot, you take a left on Cherry, right on Halsted. When you pass the highway, if you see Grand Avenue, you went too far, but literally it's 3-minute driving. Also, these guys could be sitting next to you or behind you, and they are mean. They can be mean. So please, if you don't want one of these guys, grab your shoulder and squeeze it hard. Turn off your cell phones now. All right. I don't start any meeting without thanking the people or the companies helping us, giving the space, giving the funds, giving the time to put these programs together at your expense, free to you. George Street is a nationally known wedding studio. And we have Calumet. Since day one, they were with us. Even when we were a very small Facebook group, they were with us. Although he's going to be Bill over here, he's going to be like, okay, come on, stop. But their support was incredible. We are here with a lot of help. So next up, we have On1 software, Black Rapid Straps, Simulfx. Use these codes, go to these people, not because we make money from them, they offer you discounts. Each one of them do. All right. SmugMug, Pixel, Canvas, Think Tank, Print Lab. These guys are always giving back to the community. So in my opinion, they do deserve our support. Doesn't mean we'll have to go shop from them, no, but always give them a chance, check them out. Always check them out. All of these companies had something to do with our street photography contest. They all chipped in, did something for you. And if you go to that blog right there, we actually have a list of prizes all these photographers won already. We're going to be announcing, before Jerry takes place, we're going to announce quite a few projects. So we put them under one umbrella because we've always been uniters, not dividers. We have a couple of wonderful people here from Chicago Photography Center. They've been around maybe like 40 years. But most of us are members in every place. Our message is get your education wherever you can, whenever you can, because without education, we never go anywhere, because it changes all the time. First leg of the community outreach program is the 3rd year we're doing the Future Photographers Project, but there is one misunderstanding that people do think that they have to send us supplies or they have to do something in Chicago to be part of this. The real meaning of this project is that wherever you live, yes, you all live in this room, you live in Chicago area, but we're recording, we have members over 30 countries. Our message to them is that don't send us anything, thank you, but don't. Do what we do in your own communities. Go volunteer at high schools, inspire kids. Don't throw away your photography magazines and books. Give it to them. Do something with them. Don't waste them. So CPS, CPC, a lot of names and letters can be mixed up, but we have wonderful news for you tonight. 2 weeks ago, I took my wife to Chicago Photography Center. I'm a member there, and I showed her where I go use the darkroom. Then I got this idea. Angie is the vice president there, and we have Heidi, the executive director. Awesome people. They're dedicated for this community. So I'm like, I can teach wedding photography there, and they have a lot of different programs. Some of them are 1 day, some of them are 6 weeks. So I called up and say, why don't I teach at your place and you guys give a program for one of our members? Well, it didn't stop there, because they came back, hey, we can do more than that. A lot of young photographers don't have experience with film. Some do show interest, some try to learn on their own. But Chicago Photography Center offers a program called the Film Boot Camp. 6-week-long program teaching you how to shoot film, how to process it, how to print it. So one of you will win that. Not tonight, but one of CPS members will earn that. On top of that, they were nice enough to give one member, one of our members, 1 year free membership. And it didn't stop there, because these guys are really awesome. Next month, the whole month of February, if anybody is interested in becoming a member of Chicago Photography Center, which is, in my opinion, very underpriced, because it's focused on giving to people, giving to communities, giving to you, educating you. So next month, the whole month of February, if you're interested in becoming a member of Chicago Photography Center, you will get 50% off. So thanks to Angie and Heidi, can you please come next to me so everybody see you? They also have, they brought with themselves some membership forms. So these two ladies are the people you're going to talk. If you're interested in, go and ask questions and grab forms from them. Thank you so much. All right. We met an Italian photographer a little while ago. I was familiar with his work because of Nima. He introduced me to his work. A street photographer from Italy living in Mexico City. So because he was young and talented, we asked him if he would be interested in being one of the judges at the contest. The contest was a big deal for us because it was the first time we did something this scale. Alex was beyond happy. He proved that he's very community and education-oriented person, so he helped us a lot during the process of this contest. Recently, we found out that Leica camera company from Germany is sending a small crew to Mexico City to make a little film about him. And he is working on 2 books in 2013. Topics are the life in Mexico City as an Italian, and also some of the rough neighborhoods in Mexico. But the challenge is to do all this work with a very small camera, almost point shoot. We have 2 goals with this project. One, He is a worldwide renowned street photographer, respected all around the world. 2, shooting with a small camera in dangerous places, not an $8,000 camera. He'll also prove that you don't have to have the top-of-the-line gear to take a storytelling image. You need dedication, you need time, and you need vision. All right, so we asked you last week, as he was being sponsored with other companies, we asked if it would be okay, Chicago Photographic Society would provide that camera of their choice and have our name all over the world. It was accepted. So we are, first time, sponsoring. You know, we always get sponsorships. We are now sponsoring. It's all because of you, your hard work, your support, and your willingness to give. So every time something comes out of this camera, Chicago Photographic Society will be mentioned. Our name, your name, will be all over the world. That will also bring in a lot of young talent into our group. It will help us grow. Yes, we're coming there. We're going to announce the winners of the street photo contest. So, almost 8,000 people visited our Flickr page, voted on pictures, looked where our members are submitting from. We had submissions from Russia to Latin America. We had people from Canada to Australia, Hong Kong, you name it. So out of 8,000 visitors in Flickr, we have one young lady in this room whose picture was the most voted. Cynthia. So all right, pigeon poop. Some of you know that. Okay. Well, thank you for submitting. We had 5 judges, 3 of them worldwide known and respected street photographers, 2 photography professors. And I have to thank them because it was really tough. It took them extra 3-4 days to finalize their decision. We offered 7 honorable mentions, and you're going to see each one of them tonight. They are not in alphabetical order, just random order. We have Sarah Albitron. She is here. Sarah, raise your hand. Where are you? There you go. We have Aziz Yazdani from East Coast. He's from DC. We have Anthony Pongtran. He's here. There you go, all the way in the back. All these pictures are going to be on our official website in 35 minutes. I know I'm going to kill his last name. I won't be able to say that. But Fabrizio, I'm not going to do that to you. He's another Italian photographer living in London, submitted, and this photo was also awarded with honorable mention. Krista Specht, also another photographer from the East Coast. We have David Turner. Is David here? There you go, David. We have Matt Dunn, another East Coast photographer. Now the third place. Ta-dum. Aziz Yazdani, again, from Washington, D.C. He was the only photographer given 2 awards by the judges. And the second place, we have Larry Halegua from UK again. And the first place, might be a familiar name, Jim Watkins. My kind of town. All right. Now the grand prize winner. Da-da-da-dum. All right. All right, let's do it, guys. Keep it short and make it quick. Grand prize goes to Belgium by Arthur Ernosian, very young photographer. And this image was chosen as the grand prize winner by our judges. This contest was a lot more work than we thought it was going to be, but with everybody's support, even with email support, we went through everything. We still ask you, although we still ask you to help us by shooting an email. Say, hey, next year, why don't we do this? Why don't we do that? We're open because everything we do is for you. So give us a feedback, positive, negative, just let us know, help us do better for you. All right, F12, that's another project we've been working on, and I have somebody in this room who's gonna explain what F12 is. And that person is the only one I can see in this dark room with a shiny shirt. Andres Morales is in charge of Project F12, working day and night, 4:30 in the morning, he was still working on this. So he should be the one telling you what this is about.
All right, thank you, Gokhan. Can everyone hear me? All right. Okay, so Project F12, obviously the F is for aperture, for those of you who don't know. But 12, obviously you know, it goes from 11 to 13. In this case, we chose 12 because F12 is going to be a monthly project. And what we will be doing is we will be setting a theme every single month for people to submit photos based on whatever theme that is. And it's not just going to be something simple. I mean, it can be. But it's not always going to just be, oh, go out and take a picture of flowers or something. Sometimes we're going to provide very unique, somewhat difficult to capture themes. And this is in an effort to really get people to kind of break out of a certain bubble that we all kind of get into, where we have a certain type of work that we specialize in, and we don't really break out of it very much. So we just keep repeating the same sort of stuff. I myself am guilty of not doing much outside of architectural photography. And I obviously would like to break out of that. And so that's just kind of our hope, that what we will do is we'll be able to provide a place for the entire group to submit photos, and then we will showcase them every single month. And from then on, we will kind of expand upon it in ways that we will announce later on. So this is our little logo I threw together in just like a couple minutes. So I'm going to show you quickly how we're going to do this. Also, I want to let everyone know that you don't have to pay to, this is not like our contest. It's going to be free. It's not a contest at all. It's just there for everybody to submit to. And so now we will continue on to, a description of the site. So basically you're going to go to, up here, projectf12.com. And it's going to load up, and so if we imagine that right here, here's my cursor, it's kind of dark. Up here, we have, you can't read it, it says 2013. And then below, which you also cannot read, it says January, Rusty Kukurova. These are just sample galleries for the demonstration. And then in February, it's just going to be ice cream. These are not actually our themes. So now we're going to go over here, and you can click on either one of these to go to a gallery. And so here we have Rusty. And as you can see, there will be all kinds of icons for you to click on, the thumbnails, and you can go through, or you can use these little arrows basic stuff. And then I should have kept this a little bit more concise, and I can't control it now. So you'll have to bear with me. I don't know why it's repeating. Okay, there we go. And you can also make it full screen. Exciting. Now ice cream, for those of you who have never seen it. All right, so anyway, after this long demonstration of ice cream, there's the submission form, which you can also barely read. And right here, if I can keep up with myself in the past, there we go. You'd click select files and you'd upload everything. And now I just want to keep one thing in mind. Also, we have our terms of service. It's very important to keep in mind this long thing. At the top, we have a summary of the terms, which basically will be that if you submit photos to us, you will always retain your copyright on those images. We are not superseding your rights at all. However, we will reserve the right to use it for promotional purposes related to F12. So if we want to put out a flyer, you know, we're never going to make money off of it. We'll never sell your work. We'll never do anything. We will always credit you. If we ever use your photograph for promotional work, we will credit you. So the rules will be on there as to how to upload files. But this should be pretty exciting because we will have, if a lot of people take part in it, one of our goals is to maybe even do a gallery show where we would just take small printouts of all the work submitted and maybe in that room back there have month by month what had been acquired. So, and pretty much that should be it. So that's Project F12. And remember, it's projectf12.com. And it's live right now. There's nothing submitted. We will be starting for February, not for, because we're at the 31st, so that'd be dumb. But our next theme is going to be, and Gokhan selected this, social media. And seems like a somewhat strange thing how you photograph social media. Well, of course. So you're going to have to figure out how you're going to photograph social media. And we hope that we will receive some very interesting submissions. So, and that's pretty much it for F12.
It sure was a tough choice. We do have a long list of topics lined up, but yeah, think about it. Photographing social media. How do you tell social media? Well, that's going to be up to you. But the good part is that, as Andres mentioned, nobody's going to be judged. Nobody's going to win anything. So just get you out of your own bubble and do whatever it takes. Now, we're almost there. We have a wonderful speaker. He's been waiting. We've been waiting for him to give this presentation months and months. Very quick announcement that as we're done with planning 2013, we're almost done with 2014, looking into projects for 2015. So yes, that's correct. Everybody knows, and you're here for business education. I've been shooting for almost 14 years, and I've seen a lot of talented people come and go. As you will know, after Jerry's presentation, talent doesn't pay the bills. There's a lot more behind the scenes. So please join me welcoming Jerry Alt. All right.
So we're going to use this, or do I have a slideshow?
I think you have a slideshow.
Thanks. All right. I'm starting out with this because when Gokhan got a hold of me some months ago and asked me if I would consider, I got to move this down. I'm louder than the mic. He asked me if I would, consider being one of the guest speakers for 2013. I said, oh, I'm really honored. I mean, I'm going to the Galapagos in October. I can put together a slideshow. And he goes, Jerry, I love you, but your photography is not why we want you here. So, so I felt it was important to put at least one of my images up so that I can start with it, and then you can be the judge later. So, but now I don't know which way is which, but, oh, there we go. Hey, cool. What we're going to talk about tonight is the business of photography. It's not going to be about my photography, and it's not going to be about pricing your photographs, and it's really not going to have to do specifically with the booking and the execution of how you shoot events. What I want to do is talk about the business to back up a little bit and do that. So to give myself a few credentials, I'll give you a 1-minute background on myself. I'm a licensed attorney. I've been in business one way or another since I was 16. When I was 16, I had 22 people working for me for a mom and pop business, a little gas station. Today I run a mom and pop business with 2,000 employees in 30 states, 46 different companies included in that network. And my most recent startup project back in 2007 and 8 is I went from hiring one young lady to help me to build a business to help those folks who are behind on their mortgage to do loan modifications. I grew that in less than 4 months to 300 people, and over the course of a year and a half, we saved 358,000 homes from foreclosure for zero. I made the banks pay for it. But the point is, I've stayed up late, as all of you do, work until 2 in the morning, as all of you do. If I was really going to be a business consultant tonight, I would just tell you what you're doing wrong and then leave the room. But I've been there, and so I'm trying to apply some of what I've talked to my clients about over the last 30 years, what I apply in my current business, and maybe be able to talk about some of the common issues that come up for you. So we're going to start with the caveats, because I'm a lawyer, right? So you can read it yourself, but since we're online, I am a licensed attorney, but I am not licensed in this state. So any advice I offer here is strictly my own personal opinion. It's worth as much as Rush Limbaugh's. And he's the only guy I'm smaller than, I think, in doing this. So if you want to come up and ask me for advice afterwards, feel free, but I'm not going to give you any. You should consider consulting with an attorney, a tax advisor, or an accountant if you're going into business, but not me. If it makes it any easier for you. No, really. So we won't go there. All right, so what we're going to cover tonight, and I suspect there will be some questions because I did post up on the event site that I've got a giveaway for the best question, and a couple of you have asked them before, so I want to make sure that we can save some time. And so basically I'm going to run through some of these general things that may come up. So you want to be a professional, you want to get into that. We'll talk about different forms of business, how you go about doing that, talk about protecting your name, insurance, taxes, and if we have some time, talk more specifics about some contracts. So you want to be a professional. Whoops. Whoa. Oh, good. Somebody want to plug in my projector? I have to talk really fast. I thought this would go 45 minutes, but it might be 5. So we're going to have to, I'll do hand puppets or something. No, that's okay. It was cooler with 2 different quotes, but we'll do it this way. So, I quoted myself. Whoa, what are you doing? You're on my time, dude. All right. All right, so here you go. So you can see I'm quoting myself from this PowerPoint, so you can figure that. But you don't have to sell your photos to be a professional as long as you conduct yourself professionally. And the reason I made that up, the allegory there is, a lot of people are out doing photography. And at some point, you stop taking snapshots and you start taking pictures. And then your pictures become photos. But at some point, that service and those goods become commodities and professional services that you want to get paid for. So, you know, look the part. So, right? I was going to change that, but this is from Proverbs. If it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck and it looks like a duck, then maybe it's a duck. So hopefully I can give you a few pointers tonight so that you walk and quack like a legitimate business person. So let's say you want to take pictures. Oh yeah, if I stand in the way, you can't say, okay. I'm used to walking all over. They always give me a hand mic and then cut it off after about 30 minutes when I'm speaking. There's different ways to be in business. So for the person who's got photography as a passion, as an avocation, you know, you've moved past the hobby stage, you've moved past the family asking you at the family reunions, can you set up, you know, a camera on the tabletop and take our picture? Then you're already projecting yourself as a business person if you're going out and offering to take photos for strangers, to take photos at events, to work at a corporate function, to shoot your cousin's wedding if they're going to, you know, pay you $100 for the photos when you're done. You're already in business. And if you haven't done anything else, then you are a sole proprietor. That means, as I said, tag you're it. You show up, I'm Jerry Alt, I want to charge you $50. I've got no corporate protection, I've got no liability protection. Any money I make goes on my taxes. Any deductions I get, I can hopefully take off. I'm just going to stick it on my current 1040 and I'm going to say, yeah, you know, I came down to Calumet and I bought a lens. So what are your good lenses, $2,200? So no, you probably bought the $359 50 millimeter so you can get started. And you know, you want to write that off. You got to put it on your 1040. You got to, there's a little Schedule C. You've got your short form. You're going to get past the short form once you're in business. Now you got to start adding schedules. And so you keep your expenses, do it in your checkbook, really doesn't matter. You know, put your income, any checks you get from people, $20 for taking a headshot on the street, you put that in your personal banking account. You're in business. Now it's not very professional. You haven't separated your personal life from your business. So what I'm going to encourage you to do is, even if, and we'll get to it in a moment, even if you don't want to go through the rigmarole of incorporating yourself or forming some other kind of legal entity, what I would say, go back to the prior slide, walk like a duck, quack like a duck. Don't do this. Consider, even if it's just a DBA, an assumed name. You can go to the state of Illinois, and for those of you on camera, the consulate in Guatemala, wherever you are, and you can register an assumed name. So, you know, I could go to Illinois and maybe say Jerry Alt Photography, and that's my assumed name. You haven't created a new business, you've just put your name out there, and then get business cards that say that, give it to the people you deal with. When they write checks, have them write checks to that. And then you can commingle the expenses and you can keep your equipment at home and you can do all those kind of things. But at least you're starting to project that you are, in fact, a business person. Now we go from there. What happens if, you know, you got a buddy or a husband-wife team and you say, hey, let's be photographers. Let's get some space together. You know, we'll take pet photos. You know, and you bring the lights and I'll bring the tripod. You know, we'll do this together. The problem with any partnership, and I haven't really practiced law in a few years, but when I would always tell people who want to go in business, the worst thing you can do is become a partnership. That's why it's prevalent to get prenups these days, because even married couples get a contract. When you are partners, strictly speaking, just partners with people, where you go into a joint enterprise to do something, you are responsible for the other person and they're responsible for what you do. I put the first rule of Fight Club, there is no Fight Club. And I did this because, you know, if you ever saw that movie, it's like, well, what's about Fight Club? And he goes, we can't talk about it. It has to be secret. Anytime you become a partner with somebody, there are no secrets really. What you do reflects on them. And if you said, hey, I'm happy, oh, I don't know, going to shoot this, you know, I'm going to shoot a wedding for $2,000. And your partner goes out and says, no, I'll give you a better deal, it's $1,200. Guess what? That partner just made a deal for you, and you're stuck with it. Oh, no, no, I said two. You can fight with each other. You can go off in the alley and decide not to be friends anymore, but each person in a partnership speaks for each other. So if there's only one of you, you can be a sole proprietorship, or you can be some form of business. If there's two or more, and you don't become some kind of business, you're partners. The issue that you should be worried about most is the liability. I've seen people torn apart by the fact that they went into business with someone who didn't really have good business acumen, who drove that business down, and you get dragged. You're tied to that person as long as you're in business. So these are both precursors of the next step, which is I'm going to encourage you, if you want to do this, to go through at least the most rudimentary steps to form a real business. Limited liability company. Now, in Illinois and many states, you can file what sort of feels like a corporation, but it's not as difficult to deal with. It's not as difficult for tax purposes, but it gives you the protection of a corporation. What I said, the protection of a corporation and tax like an individual, what a limited liability company is you have to, again, I'm talking about Illinois, you go to, I've got it on the next page, Cyber Drive, Illinois, because it's the Secretary of State, the same people do your license plates. So that makes them qualified to tell you how to be in business. But you go out there and on their web page, you can click on business services. It's the same place, by the way, you go and you click for assumed name certificate. So if you just want to be a sole proprietorship and you want to be Jerry All, well, you can't be Jerry All Photography, I got that, but you can be, you know, whoever you are, then, or ABC Photographers, doesn't have to have your name in it. And assumed name means I'm just using this name for business. You go out there, you click, there are limited liability companies, which are treated like corporations. You can also set up what's called a limited liability partnership, but I'd encourage you, at least in my initial thought, but you have to talk to your own lawyer, don't listen to me, talk to your own tax accountant, don't talk to me. I think a limited liability company is what you want to do. There's a couple different ways that it works, but generally, you can sign contracts with people. If you break them, they come after you, they get stopped by that company. So there may not be any assets in it, or there may be that $359 lens that represents the total assets of that LLC. But when you make money, it doesn't get stuck there. When you make money, it flows through that company and it shows back up. You get a K1 and it shows up on your taxes. So if you want to have the protection of going out there, especially, again, I'll go back to the wedding idea, where maybe you're hiring subcontractors, and we'll talk about contracts at the very end, but you go out to shoot a wedding and you hire somebody for $400 and they trip over and knock the cake down, you know, and now the bride and groom are like, you know, we got a major problem. I got a $700 cake you kicked on the ground. You know, it'd be nice to have some kind of protection for the acts of others. And this form of business, any kind of corporation, but specifically the LLC, it's cheaper than filing for a corporation. The tax return is pretty transparent, and it makes you look like a business. So Jerry Alt Photography, LLC already sounds and looks a whole lot more like a real business. Now there's trade-offs for this, but we'll talk about the last one, the Big Daddy. I was going to put an image here from the Monopoly game, you know, the guy with the cigar and a little top hat sitting up in the corner, but I wrote this about a month ago and I was too busy to chase extraneous copyrighted material off the web and share it with you. So the corporation, the limited liability company was kind of made in between being yourself and being a corporation, because a legitimate C Corp, which is a for-profit corporation, and I think you all want to be a for-profit, not a not-for-profit. CPS can be a not-for-profit, but I think all of you, if you want to go into business, don't really have that business plan to lose money. It is the Big Daddy, as I said. You got all the protections of liability, but the biggest difference there is if you make money, it stays in the company. And if you're starting out, it's overkill. I'll just tell you that. You don't need to do that. It's harder to take it apart. There are sometimes some reasons, especially if there's multiple people involved with your business, that you might want to do that. But you really can end up with double taxation, where you make, let's say you make $10,000 in a corporation. Now it's got to pay maybe, I don't know what the current corporate rate's, 17%, 18%. Then you're going to take the money out, and then you're going to pay another 18 or 20%. You got hit twice. You can avoid that by paying yourself wages, but now you become an employer. It's not worth the, in my mind, it's not worth the aggravation. So you've got different forms of business that you can go into. How many of you use some form of business in here if you're a working photographer? Okay, so we got a couple of dozen hands. So how many of you are just still working as sole proprietors? Okay, all those hands. Well, okay, I'll print this and give it to you when we're done. Because there's a website right there, you can go. It costs you some money. You got to file. So the first thing you want to do if you're going to go in business, well, it's not really the first thing. I skipped, there's a slide 2 more down that says protect your name. So I'm assuming right now, I was just following the business thing. You want to go and file for that business. You want to protect that business. You do that by going online. Michigan's got it, Connecticut's got it, Illinois' got it. They've got a website. I'm not aware of any state that doesn't. You can go online, you can get the forms, you fill it, and some of them you can fill them in online, give them a credit card, and you're done, and you get registered. If you're working in a city, and there's people here who work inside the city of Chicago, right? You've got separate business registrations you got to do? Yes or no? Yes, okay, I thought so. Here's one that people tend to miss. If you're going to form another business besides a if you're a sole proprietorship, if I'm Jerry Alt doing photography, I've already got a federal ID number. It's called my Social Security number. That goes on my tax return. Told you in that slide, you just put the income and expenses on your tax return anyway, so you don't need anything separate. But if you're going to be an LLC or a corporation, you need to get a federal tax ID number. You can go to www.irs.gov. There's a little box there. You click on it, and you can apply and get a federal ID number, something, 36-2257, whatever it is. That's separate from your social number. It identifies that as a business. Again, one more indication when you're dealing with third parties that you're a real legitimate business. Why do you want to do this? You go to a hotel down here, you want to book time to shoot, Palmer House, whatever. They give you a contract. You want to fill it out with the name of the business. You want to use this tax ID number. You want to divorce yourself from the personal liability of screwing it up or not showing up or not paying them or bouncing a check. So when you set up the business, do it early. Get the paperwork done. It's not very hard to maintain year in, year out. Keeping your books, which is beyond the scope of what I want to talk about tonight, is something you should go get Quicken or go or whatever replace Microsoft Money. I love Microsoft Money, and I just haven't upgraded my computer in like 9 years because I'm afraid that they don't make it anymore. But it's real simple to keep your books. You put the expenses in, you keep the receipts. I'm bad about keeping receipts. You put them there and add them up, and at the end of the year, if you don't do a whole lot of work, you put the income on the left, expenses on the right, simple arithmetic. Even the people at Columbia have to take math, right? On that, so you do that, and you hope it's a plus number. And if it is, you go, woohoo, I'm not only a pro, I'm a successful one. Button, okay. So let's talk about names. When you talk about being in business, a lot of people are out there, you see them on Facebook, posting pictures, and you click and you say, oh, those are pretty good, I want to go see what they do, and then it turns out it's just Jerry Alt. And you go, huh, well, so you can register your name. You can you basically own your name unless somebody else has got the same one. So go out to the state, get an assumed name certificate. I don't remember. Neil back here anyway? Yeah, there. Roughly, do you know what that is? 25 bucks, 75 bucks? Assumed name's not that expensive to get. And again, it doesn't need to be Jerry Alt. It can be, K&B photography or whatever you want to do. But when you go out there, one of the things you do is you identify something unique to yourself. Because if I went out and said, I want to be Calumet Photo. It's not going to let me do that because somebody else already has that name. So it helps you as well to distinguish yourself. If you want to be successful in business, you want to be something different than the people sitting around you, okay? And it's probably a good time to say that 9 out of 10 small businesses fail, so look all the way around you, and if they all look good, then you're it. So yeah, you've got a lot of competition to be successful, and some of the things that will help you are the little things. When you walk up to somebody and you quote to do a job for them, and again, I'm not a wedding photographer, but you sit down with a prospective bride and groom, and you pull out your portfolio and they love it all, and then you turn over a legal pad and hand write the contract with them, you're kind of taking a little something away from the presentation. So if you pull out your contract, which we'll get to, and it says across the top, Jerry Alt Photography, LLC, and you got your address on it, and you can fill it out, and they go, hey, this person actually does this. I mean, maybe your photography sucks, but at least you look like, you're quacking like a duck, right? So you want to get there. Yeah, they don't know about the suck part until after the reception, so that's usually. Copyright. I said you look at somebody's picture sitting out there on Facebook. This is not strictly a business issue, but when you want to talk about protecting yourself in business, what is the value you've got? I mean, think of me back when I was practicing law. The value I had was my time, billing clients by the hour, using the knowledge that I've got to draft agreements for them, give them advice and the like. So if I'm going to give all of that away, then what's the point? What's the value in coming back and, paying me later? So when your service is the photography, protect that. You can claim a copyright just by taking your images and putting a little, the C symbol on it. You can write copyright. You can put your name on it. And you have a common law copyright just because it was yours, if you can prove it was yours. Yeah, don't take my image and put your copyright on. I'm going to chase you down. But you can use a copyright, so do it. The other thing it does is as your imagery gets out in the world, that becomes like another business card for you. As people share your images online, whether it be on Flickr, whether it be across Facebook, and it comes across and they go, wow, that's really nice. I mean, mine is alt imagery, but okay, and you go, oh, altimagery.com, and they can follow that link and go back and you can generate traffic that way. So again, you're trying to stand out, but you're not just, hey, this is Jerry Alt's photo, let me, see what he's got sitting on his Facebook homepage. Oh, good, I can play Mafia Wars, whatever. Trademarks and trade names is kind of the same thing as the registering your name. The difference on trademarks and the word copyright itself, they both have special connotations. You can go through the aggravation. You can register a trade name. If you have an awesome logo that somebody made for you and you want to protect it, just use it. You have the common law right to use it. If it's so cool that you're afraid if somebody steals it, you're out of business, then you can go and you can send a copy to the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office, and they'll look to see, whether it's really unique, and they'll charge you a bunch of money, and maybe or maybe not, they'll come back and go, okay, cool, you can have that. So don't use a logo that looks exactly like Pepsi, because they'll figure that one out. So it's, photograph, spelled just like Pepsi with the red and white and blue, that's probably not going to make it. But online presence, you talk about protecting your name again. Any place you're online, use your business name. That's a very good way. And what's missing on here, business cards. Do you have business cards? If you want to be in business, have business cards. Don't go, oh yeah, here, I got a pen. I'll write my number down. Doesn't work. You can go to moo.com or any of the other places online. You can order 100 business cards for 30 bucks. If you want to do this, then do it right, okay? So now let's say you've decided to go in business. You've been taking photos that people like. You enjoy it, which you should do. There should be some passion about it. Before I get into this, is Dan Ginn here tonight? Good, then I can quote him. I'll just steal all his stuff. No, I'll give him credit, just like you should credit the photos. When we start, before I get off of that and get into some specifics, Dan was one of the speakers at the Calumet workshop, the Eagle workshop, where that I was this last weekend, took that picture. And he talked about his evolution in business. And he talked about the mistakes he made early on, and he talked about the evolution out of where it was to being a very successful wedding photographer today. And all he does really is wedding photography. We talked about that online presence and getting your name out there. Probably the worst thing you can do on a business card, Jerry Alt Photography, and then bullet point, wildlife, pets, boudoir, architecture. I mean, really, boudoir and architecture? I mean, there's some interesting ideas that, hey, that should be a topic for F12. So, architectural boudoir, you know, like bikinis on top of the Hancock or something like that. You know, well, you guys work on that one. But, you know, if you try to be everything, you know, you might as well just write handyman and, oh, by the way, I have a camera, you know. If that's all you're going to do, I'm going to show up, what do you need? So don't do that. You're trying to set yourself apart. Obviously, I'm not a very good lawyer, and I'm a half-assed comedian, but, you know, you want to stand for something. So that's what I would encourage you. And that wasn't my idea. It was Dan Ginn. Give him all the credit online. So let's talk about some of the things that people did send me some questions. And so we're going to do this, and I want to leave time for anybody who cares for questions. But there are some real common things that keep coming up, and we've talked about them over cocktails in past months. People will walk up and just throw a question at you, and some of these are showing up on the CPS website. So one of the things about being in business is liability. What am I going to do about my equipment? What if I'm doing a gig and I drive down and I have my, you know, ratty 86 Volvo station wagon where the tailgate doesn't really hold anymore, so I've got it bungeed, and it's real safe except when I leave $1,000 worth of gear in it to go inside. So, you know, am I going to be protected if that stuff's gone? Am I going to be protected if I go to shoot something and I got 2 cameras and I set one down while I go over here to change lenses and then I come back and it's gone? You know, like the guy's Rolex watch in Midnight Cowboy. Well, I'll just set it down for a second. You know, so you've got to worry about that. You're spending a lot of good money, especially if you're starting out. You know, your equipment expense is going to be one of your most significant capital investments. On the other side, personal liability. The personal liability of you going out and doing things, like I said, knocking over that very expensive wedding cake on somebody's wedding day, or pushing backward at somebody's house to get the picture of the kid and you knock over a vase. You know, whatever it may be, you've got potential liability for what you do once you project yourself in business. And then, you know, if you're in business and you go driving around and you hit somebody, okay, or you are transporting, how many people drive your clients? You don't drive your clients, right? You meet them at North Avenue Beach and they got to pay their own parking, right? So yeah, you're not doing that. So, and then you want to get paid for yours too, but whatever. But, you know, if you're transporting other people, transporting gear, whatever, you've got some potential issues with auto. Now, one of the first things, you know, people say is, oh, well, I've got auto insurance and I got homeowners, so I'm covered. If you're in business, probably not. So, but here's some of the things you need to look out for. And I didn't talk to Gokhan about this ahead of time, but I've got some information coming from, it's probably a top 20 underwriter and agency that does commercial work. They've got over 100 people in Schaumburg. We do $500,000 worth of business with them a year, and I love them. They were going to put together some schedules for me for tonight, so when we've got them, I'll find a way to publish them out, comparing different underwriters, what kind of insurance they have, and what kind of typical rates, like if you had a $5,000 package or a $10,000 or a $50,000 package, what it would be. So they weren't trying to sell stuff themselves, but they, as an accommodation to me, because we do business with them, I asked them to put that together and I just wasn't able to chase them down. But one of the real keys when you're talking about insurance, you know, you bought the really nice, you're a Nikon shooter. What's a 4 or 5 year old Nikon body? A D90? A D3. Okay. So you got a D3, you're shooting events, It's really important to you because that's your tool. That's your hammer for when you're a carpenter, right? You show up every day, that's the workhorse. And it gets stolen from an event. Probably can't buy the D3s new anymore, can you? You can probably find one on Craigslist that's been dropped a few times in the back seat of the car, got a few scratches, and maybe or maybe not it'll charge the battery. Yeah, okay. But you can get those. So if you've got typical insurance, it's going to pay you the depreciated value. So it's going to say that's a 5-year-old camera. You paid, you know, whatever you paid for it. You paid, it's Nikon, so it couldn't be much, right? 15. Well, it's certainly not worth anything. So, see, now the questions are going to come. All right. I shot that eagle, by the way, with my iPhone 5 and a Holga filter, so, you know, I don't know anything about it. So, so you've got that issue. You've got that camera that was a few $1,000s that you can't get anymore, so if you want to replace the same quality, you're probably going to pay more anyway. And now you go to your insurance, they say, oh, well, 5 years, let's see, a camera's got a life of 4, so it was worth $100. And that's not what they want to pay. Oh, I paid insurance for 5 years. Yeah, too bad. Because you got the depreciated value. You got what it was worth. It's like totaling your car, you know, and when you, I mean, my first car was a 65 Buick LeSabre, which I bought in 1977, so you can imagine, I bought it with 81,000 miles on it. It didn't take much to total that car. Like the deductible was the total. And so, you know, I had liability insurance. I didn't have anything for replacement value on it because if I hit a good bump, I was just going to pull my stuff out of the back seat and walk away. You can't do that with your business goods, especially if you've got something important and valuable. You know, you lose a pop-up. Bill, these are wonderful pop-ups, I'm sure. But, you know, if you lose one of these, you say, oh, well, I can replace another one. But when you're talking about your equipment, it's interfering with your business. It's depriving you of livelihood. You buy insurance so you don't have that problem. You better make sure you've got replacement, meaning I want to replace equal or better so that now you can come out and you can get the, you know, whatever it be, the 600, 700, I don't know what that, the 4, sure, of course you want a 4. Well, you pay more for that, but whatever that camera, you know, whatever the equivalent would be today. So, you know, if that was a 12 megapixel, you want to buy a 12 megapixel camera today. There are always exclusions on insurance. You need to ask your agent. You just don't go to your State Farm person. I mean, State Farm's a great company. I have them on my house. But you don't just walk in and go, well, you're State Farm, so it must be awesome. Where do I sign up? You need to ask these questions when you're talking about insurance. What's not covered, right? So again, the analogy on your, you know, your car. Maybe hail damage isn't covered. So you need to make sure that that's included. So same thing here. What are my exclusions? Well, if it's stolen, we'll pay. But if it's just broken because you dropped it a story, it's not covered. Or if it got wet because you were taking that picture and stepped off the edge of the pier at North Avenue and went into 5 feet of water, it went like that and said, oh, it's good. I was in the Galapagos, by the way. 4th day, 3rd day, guy comes and he throws his camera at me. Now I'm, you know, I'm shooting with a 1D Mark IV and a 300 millimeter lens, so he imagined I knew something about cameras, and he was mostly wrong. But he takes his camera and he throws it at me and he goes, fix this. Well, I had met him before. He was from Long Island, so that was the same as saying please. So I said, what's wrong with it? And he goes, I don't know, but it worked great till I went snorkeling. So, you know, so there are certain things. Yeah, apparently water resistant and 10 feet deep are not the same thing. So you need to talk about the exclusions. So cover that. You know, what is and what isn't covered. And on business policies, typically you'll have a lot more covered. Nuclear wars, probably not, but maybe dropping it 20 feet is. So find out. And then your deductible. When you're looking at your, and I'm talking about your equipment, but it applies to any of the other stuff. When you're looking at covering stuff, you know, you got to think about the deductible. I mean, it's really cheap to buy camera coverage or computer coverage with a $1,000 deductible, you know, but is that going to do you any good? What's it going to cost you for $100? And then you kind of compare to, okay, what about $500? And what are the odds I'm going to, you know, actually lose something? So you need to be checking these things out because they vary considerably. There's no such thing as one size, this is what you get. So I started out with the question of, well, I've already got homeowners or auto. If you're in business, and of course the premise of this was you want to be a photographer, so you're going to be in some kind of business, you're probably not covered on any of that stuff, even if it's in the trunk of your car, because you're a business person and that was your personal auto policy. You can have that kind of stuff covered at home, but typically high-end electronics, jewelry, and art are excluded from your homeowners, whether it's renters or property owners. They're excluded unless you pay extra and have them scheduled. And then that's really cool because you have to figure out how to take a picture of your camera. But you know, there's people here who can let you do that. But you know, you take a photo or you make a list and you lay it all out and you go to them and say, what's this? And they, what's it worth? And you say, well, it's worth 10,000 bucks. So they'll write you a rider for scheduled property. They'll charge you basically for the extra 10,000 bucks. But at least you can get coverage on it because you may find it's not covered at all. Taxes. Okay, we'll go on. Now, this is important. Not only pay them, but tell them when they come to chase you for the taxes that I said you should pay them. There are some specific things, and we had this conversation probably 6 months ago online, and I was trying to show off my math skills, and we could spend 30 minutes just talking about sales tax, but we won't, thank God, because there's other things coming after this. But I'll throw this concept out for you. It's really bad to screw the government on the one thing they can track you down for. Okay, you want to grow a little weed in the basement, they don't know about that. But if you want to duck out on sales tax and you know, you're charging people to provide services and sell them photos, then keep good records. You know, not every convenience store in the city has one set of books, wink, wink. But, you know, but what goes in the till, they report and, you know, they pay tax on. With sales tax, a lot of people won't, because I don't think you need to here in Illinois, I'm trying to think. You don't need to pay sales tax on services, right? So when you shoot a wedding and you say it's a package, 1,500 bucks, and you don't separate out the fact that it's $500 for professional services and $1,000 for the album and the delivery of proofs, then you probably owe sales tax on all $1,500. And so other people who've done more of that can talk about the specifics of, I said I started at the beginning after making fun of GoCon and my photography, that I wasn't going to get into the detail of how you do that. But on a larger level, if you are taking a photograph, there is a personal service component that goes into that, which isn't, it's subject to income tax. I charge you $100 for a portrait session. I got to pay income tax on that if I make a profit. The difference is income tax you pay on the net, sales tax you pay on the gross. So you can sell a ton of services and have expenses greater than that and show a loss at the end of the year. You might still be liable for the sales tax. So separate out your services from your goods. And then there was a separate conversation that I think we can do at the, what's the name of the place at 9:30? The, yeah, at the bar. It is, you just say, oh, I'm going to charge $100 for this photo package. Should it be 100 plus 7 in sales tax? And they said, well, no, we'll just net it out and we'll make it 93 plus 7. And I said, well, then you're paying more than 7%. And that's where the math thing got in. You know, really it's about 94.50 plus. So it's easier, just identify it separately. You know, you want to charge somebody $95 plus $5 tax, that's not enough. You're going to end up dipping into your 95 bucks to pay the difference. Or just say, these are goods, and have a line at the bottom for sales tax. They pay sales tax at Best Buy. They shouldn't be afraid to pay sales tax to you if you separate it out. Payroll taxes. Well, the good and the bad here. If you're doing well enough to have payroll taxes, then awesome. You can give the, well, we don't have any holes till 2015, but you can then talk about how to be successful in business in 2015. Most of the time, if you're paying somebody else to help you, and I cover this in the contracts section, which is one of the next 2 slides, because I'm almost done. You're going to pay those people as independent contractors. And if you pay them as independent contractors and you sign the agreement and you put the right language in it, then they're not your employee. They may do your bidding for a day, but so do cab drivers, right? Take me to Calumet. You pay them $10 and they get you here. That doesn't make them your employee because they followed your directions. So if you're going to hire people on an interim basis, on and off, as you have gigs to help you, keep them independent contractors. Avoid the aggravation of payroll because you may have city payroll, state payroll, and federal payroll issues. And once you start getting into that, now you got the 2.8% for Obamacare. And I mean, I've had plenty of employees. I've got thousands of them now in 46 or 48 different companies. But I got people who do that for me, and they use ADP because we don't want to be messing around with it. So all I'd say is if you think, hey, I'm just going to hire somebody I'm very successful, I got a studio, we're going to hire a receptionist, understand that if you do that, now you're going to be responsible for maybe not benefits because you're a lousy employer, but you're still going to pay the minimum wage, and you're going to want to, you're not going to want to, but you're going to have to deduct the taxes, both yours and theirs, and pay them. So income tax, that's the easy one, sort of, depending on how much you abuse the last two things on the list here. You charge $100 and you have no expenses at the end of the year, you've got $100 of net income. Income is exactly that. It's revenue. The money you charge is not income. So if I charge $100 to come take a photo of your ugly pet, then that's revenue, not income, because I've got potentially expenses against that to create a net. So it's top item minus the bottom, and then if you use Microsoft Money, it comes up red. More often than it comes up black, but you know, if you have net, then you have to pay taxes on it. Depending on your form of business, you'll be calculating that maybe in the LLC, you'll have your Quicken statement. At the end of the year, you'll have it all written down. You'll transfer those amounts to the form, what is it, 1065, whatever it is for the LLC. I use Quicken, so I just punch a button. I don't know what form it is. And if it's got a plus number, then you put that on your taxes. And if it's a negative number, you put it on your taxes and you deduct it from your ordinary income, and you're done. And I'm not going to get into depreciation stuff. That's why you should talk to an accountant. But the last two things I'll talk about taxes, and this is where people go, oh, this is great. I'm going into business for myself because I can write off my house. So I'm going to upgrade to one with a pool. No, you can't. There are a couple of distinctions here. Number one is the question of deduction versus capital expense. Now it gets fuzzy at the low end. You can buy a $2,500 camera body and expense it this year if it's for a legitimate business purpose, because there is a number, I think it's $7,500. The first $7,500, you can take what's called a Section 179 election, not depreciated over the 3 or 5 or 10 years of its useful life, but just take it off this year in cash. But generally, durable stuff, that big old printer, all those studio lights, all of the improvements you did to the studio space, those are capital expenditures. You have to write them off over time. So don't think that just because I spent $100, I get to write off $100. And that goes back to the first thing. I got $100 of revenue, but hey, I bought a camera, so that's more than $100, so great, I got no taxes. Maybe you have to depreciate that thing, and maybe you only get to take $50 off. So that means you still have $50 of net income that you have to pay tax on this year. So I'm using real small examples. It doesn't take very much to say, I made $20,000 of cash, and I spent it all out of my checking account, so I should have no taxes, and then find out that you owe. So that's why you go talk to an accountant once you get started. It's not a big deal. They'll tell you how stupid you've been, and they'll promise to fix it for you. And then the home office, the last thing here, there are very, very specific, stringent rules on home office. And basically, your half of the living room isn't going to count. So you have to have it separately accessed. Typically, you have to have access from the outside, because if it's a business, it shouldn't have anything to do with your family. So you shouldn't have to walk through the laundry room to get to that office. And like I said, the pool in the back, even though it was nice, oh, that's for my clients when they're relaxing between shoots. No, that's what the hot tub is for. So you want to cool it on that. But I know a lot of people legitimately, maybe they took a garage and they converted it to an office. They can still get into it, but they put a door outside so clients can drive up and they can walk in, they can shoot, they have their little studio, or in the case of the guy I'm thinking of, he had a consultant business and he had it running there, and he was able to successfully write off that percentage of square foot of his entire house. So if he had a 4,000 square foot house and 400 square feet for the office, 10% of his taxes, 10% of the utilities, he was able to take those off. So when you get to that point, ask somebody who's competent to give you advice and not me, unless you need to go back to the first slide. All right, contracts. I'll get through this quickly because I think we've covered some of it in other sessions, and I'm sure you will again. Oh, that should have been big, like the pay the taxes. Sorry, I didn't review this since New Year's Day. So get it in writing. If you're going to do a contract with somebody, and a contract is an agreement. First year contract law study in law school will say you need at least 2 parties, because I can agree to myself, but then I can forget. So you got 2 people, you make an agreement where both describe their obligation, the consideration that I'm going to give you photos, you're going to write me a check. Now there's consideration on both sides. And you have to show that it's mutual, and the best way to do that is to have it in writing so that you don't argue about it. So if you're going to get it in writing, go ahead and sign it. Now the cool thing is we're in an electronic age, you can do contracts by email. You do contracts by scanning a copy over. Literally, anything you want to be your signature is your signature. So if you want to, get your signature on a stamp, which I wouldn't encourage unless you trust everybody who's got access to it, stamp them, stick them in the mail, somebody signs a copy and mails that back to you. You've got a contract as long as both of you. It's not so much about the writing, because you can make a contract. We can agree to a contract right here and go out in the parking lot. But then how are we going to enforce it? He said, she said. So get it in writing, sign it, and then keep a copy so you know what the terms are. The whole point of the contract is figure out what the terms are. So what are the elements? What are the things that we should put in a contract? Well, one would be maybe the date, just so we know when in time it happened. And dates are a couple of different things. The date you did it is really cool, but the date it's supposed to be done. I'm going to shoot your wedding. When? Maybe your quote is only good for 90 days. Maybe your quote's good for 6 months. I mean, you don't want to agree to shoot somebody's wedding and then they break off the engagement, and 5 years later you get a call at 2:30 in the morning when you're drunk going, I'm ready, and I got a contract. And so, put a date in there both for when you made it, so you have some idea of the point in time and what's reasonable, and then also the date when the services or goods are to be delivered. You should describe what you're doing. The contract should say, I'm going to show up at your house and I'm going to do 3 changes of outfits, and I'll do 5 looks, and I'll deliver digital proofs, period. And then put a price on it so that they don't come back and go, well, you said you were taking pictures, so I expected I was going to get an album. Write it down, you won't worry about it. It's just like a prenup in a wedding. You're going to fight about it anyway, so you might as well have some ammunition on your side. The conditions, there's all kinds of conditions. I'll do it if it's sunny. I mean, whatever you're going to put your conditions, put your present. What's a typical condition you'd put in a contract for a wedding, Gokhan? Something that you couldn't control. I mean, would you? Okay. So that's an element of that's not really a condition. I was thinking of a condition like would excuse your performance. Like yeah. Right. Right. I mean, those are legitimate conditions as well. So the point is, you don't want to argue about it, and they say your pictures were horrible, and you're like, well, you had your reception in a barn, and the power was out, and I didn't know it till halfway through the first dance when the Jenny went out in the back, and we're stuck in the dark. So, I mean, you're supposed to do certain things, but you don't want to be stuck for that. So put the conditions in there. Price is real important. I got a question beforehand about, how do I price? I don't want to talk about how you price your stuff, but put your price, put your expectation. So here's the parties, here's what I'm going to do, here's when I'm going to do it, and here's what you're going to pay me. Write it down now, less to argue about later. Now you might have left something out, but at least all the things you included, you're not going to have to argue about later. The last part of a contract, and many people forget this part, and you, when you talk about second shooters, you gave people who were there in attendance, you gave them a copy of a standard independent contractor agreement, right? So you want remedies. Well, what happens when you hire a second shooter and they don't show up? And you had to replace them with somebody. I mean, do you want to hold them liable for it, or you just say they're a deadbeat, I won't use them anymore? So if you want to have remedies in there, you know, or you know, if I'm going to shoot 8 hours, and if you keep me over, I'm going to charge you $100 an hour for every hour you keep me over. You've laid it in there. You've got your remedies in the event that the other side went bad. So the more you write down in a contract, you can handwrite contracts, by the way. I know everybody's got a word processor, nobody knows how to do cursive anymore, but you can handwrite it. You can put, I have a contract in my closet at home, and my boss doesn't know that I do, but we were at Gibson's about 7 or 8 years ago, and he's a really light drinker, so he was about halfway through his first red wine, and a client was there who's fortunately since gone somewhere else because they can't enforce the contract, but they were getting all toasty and they wanted to do something. They said, we're going to make a contract. So they pulled over. I have a Gibson's cocktail napkin at home that says, we agree, and it was signed by both of them. Now, it's a contract, but it fails. It doesn't describe what anybody's going to do. It doesn't talk about the conditions. There's no price. You know, it's like, I'm going to come over next week and walk your dog, Tony. Good. I'm not actually showing up, and you can't sue me. There's no consideration, right? I didn't, you know, you weren't giving me anything back. So you can write a contract on anything, including a dirty napkin. Just put enough in it that it becomes enforceable. So, all right, that's where I end up. So are there any couple of questions, or are we going to get them all tonight in the bar? Oh, yeah, okay. I'll repeat the question. You've got insurance and you're going to do something really awful and they're going to sue you for it, and can they get past the insurance policy? That's a great question because you're not going to like the initial answer is, oh yeah, they can. The insurance is there for your benefit, not for theirs, to limit your liability. A great reason, if you really, really suck at what you do, to become an LLC. Because then they would come after you. You might have insurance for it, but whatever's left in the LLC or in your corporation is as far as they can come. Unless you are malicious, tortious, you torch their house, because you're not going to, short of a felony, you're probably not personally liable or fraud. But if you just make a bad mistake, that's why people have insurance. But when it fails, they file bankruptcy. You don't want to file bankruptcy. So pay $150 or $300, whatever it is, up front to be an LLC. Pay $50 a year to keep it current, and you've just basically given yourself a life deductible. So, yeah.
What's a good source to start, educating yourself about resources that if I wanted to incorporate all the suggestions that you made, how would I start? Would I start on the internet to find out these things?
Well, this keynote's going to be available tomorrow at 30% off its regular $150 price. That would be, what, CPS 30 would be the discount code. No. I could try. You know what? Go cyberdriveillinois.com. They have the forms. They have some explanation in there. But yeah, you can do a Google search. I mean, this is general enough you can do a Google search. And if you're serious about going into business, interview a lawyer, interview an accountant, and ask them some basic questions. Because if they want your business, I mean, don't scam them and go in. But there are enough folks out there who are hungry for business that they'll give you a 30-minute consultation to see what you should do. So take advantage of it and ask a couple of questions. But there's so much out there, I just wouldn't use, would you do your own surgery using WebMD as a guide? No. So I wouldn't necessarily use law.com to figure out exactly how to set up your business. Yeah, follow up.
Is a prepaid legal service
I'm sober, I can't answer that. But I'll tell you later. You know, I used to win so many cases against the prepaid legal services guys. It's awesome. You know, if you want, no, but to be honest, if you're in a situation where you can get it subsidized, because I come from the Detroit area, I'm licensed in Michigan, and UAW Legal Services, the Ford Motor Company, you know, they had those as benefits. And it's awesome if you want to have somebody review a lease when you move into a new house. It's great if you want to look at a finance contract. But when you're talking about setting up your business and making decisions, I'm not so sure that, I mean, you might get lucky, but that's not really what they were put together for.
And there's also like in the insurance policy, if you look at what's excluded, because oftentimes these big legal services, when you really need them for something that's going to be really expensive, you find out, oh, sorry.
Right, they'll talk to you about it and say, I can't do that, and then, you know. And the problem is, many of those, not all of them, I know people I worked against who were 30-year, 40-year attorneys. They just liked the idea of having a salary and not having to beat the streets looking for clients. But there's a lot of people who use that as their training ground, and they can do the simple stuff. They can do the rote checklist stuff, but when you start talking about what form of business and what I'm going to do, and I don't think that's necessarily your best way to go. So, over there, yeah. Well, stop dealing with lawyers. Yeah, well, the question was, where do you find a competent, trustworthy attorney? Graceland Cemetery. Because their mouths are shut, and so now you're not, no. How many more lawyer jokes am I allowed to tell tonight, Neil? So, or former lawyer jokes. You know, we have some, I mean, I'm not a working attorney right now, and I told you I'm not licensed here, so I can't even opine on that. You can find people who will do a good job for you. You can find people you can afford. But unfortunately, at the level you probably need help, it ends up being like most other services. How did you find a for your house? You asked somebody who had had a plumbing problem that you knew, and you somebody that I got stop moving one of my hands, you know, and you asked for a recommendation. So there are probably people here within CPS who can talk to you, and or else he's soliciting business over on the wall. Yes, Nima. Would you be willing to put something on the notes for the event tonight and put those sites, and then you can check them out? So, all right, we'll take one more question here, and then we need to move along. There were hands kind of waving. You were just saying hi, how you doing? Sup? All right. Yeah, I'm hoping to sell a 4x6 from the Galapagos so I can write off that trip. Yeah, that'd be awesome. Any business expense, forget whether it's travel or entertainment, is guided by a reasonableness. So if you're taking somebody out to convince them to let you take that photo session of their dog that I referred to, and you take them to Gibson's, you're probably overkill and that's probably unreasonable. So the idea of saying, you know what, my family wants to go to Texas, so I'll take my camera and we'll just go down to the, whatever, the Galveston area along the bay for 3 or 4 days. We might stay in the Hilton because I'm writing it off. It's probably not going to work. So, okay? All right. No? All right, before I hand this back to you, sir, you can't have this back because Neil's going to come up. No, literally. Don't look surprised. Mutiny. All right, here you go.
Over the past month or so, myself and a couple of our administrators have been sort of thinking about efforts that certain people have been putting into putting all this together and all the work that has gone into this, both in front of the scenes and behind the scenes. So Nima, Andres, Annette, you want to come up? So we weren't sure who to give this to, so we're going to open this envelope, and you tell me whose name is in there.
The winner is?
For the CPS, the first annual CPS Lifetime Achievement Award.
Whoa.
It's empty?
It's empty.
No, it definitely says GoCon in there. So.
You bet.
This is from the board and all the members.
Go ahead. Now you can have this.
Yeah, sure. Now all I'm going to say is pigeon poop. Yeah, that's right. Crazy. Well, I am speechless. I actually wasn't even expecting anything. So, thank you. Let's go party. All right. That's what I'm going to say. Thank you for everything. And before I start crying, let's go have party. One quick thing I will ask, even though Bill never said anything about this, please love each other, respect each other, do something for each other, and before you leave, please do not leave anything under your chairs. If there's paper, anything like that, just with you, and they will take care of the rest. Thank you so much for coming. See you next month.